you guys? Marty Schwartz here with Marty Music. We've got another episode of Guitar Tours, which I love doing. We're in Nashville, Tennessee with the great musician producer Dan Knobler.
Welcome.
Thank you, and this is your studio, right?
This is my studio here at Goosehead Palace.
Goosehead Palace, not Goosehead Studios?
No, Goosehead Palace. I just like the idea of flipping over a record and seeing recorded at Goosehead Palace in Nashville, Tennessee. I thought that was funny.
There is a lamp, a goose lamp.
There is a lit up goose lamp, which is not what the studio is named after. The studio is named after my dog, who my wife refers to as Goosehead, who often frequents the studio.
Is the dog named Goose? Or?
No, the dog is named Millie. There's no rhyme or reason.
No rhyme or reason. And real quick, congratulations on the newborn.
Thank you very much.
So you have a fresh baby.
Fresh baby.
So that's really sweet. You know, it only inspires you more, I find.
It's true. It's pretty amazing so far.
Well, first of all, how long have you been here in Nashville?
I've been in Nashville for about 4 years, and we lived in East Nashville for a couple years, right in the middle of sort of all the hip craziness, and then decided we wanted to live in the woods and not see our neighbors' houses. So we found this amazing place that already had a studio built out, and so we just kind of plopped our gear in here and got going.
Do you pinch yourself sometimes when you walk in
here? Oh,
here?
Absolutely. It's still every morning I'm like, this is amazing. I can't believe this is my place. On an audio level too, it's like the first time I've had a room that has a room sound that I can embrace as opposed to like trying to mitigate.
Right.
Like, okay, everything needs to be tight and there needs to be just so much egg crates on the wall so that you can't hear the room. And now it's like, oh, I can put a room mic up and it sounds cool.
You got tape machines?
I've got a 2-track tape machine.
How often are you recording to tape with your artists?
I don't record to tape too often, but I mix to tape. So I have my console and I'll mix on that and then I'll print it to a 2-track machine and then back into Pro Tools. And I'd like to get a 16-track machine at some point, but honestly, everyone wants to record to tape, and then when it comes down to it, people are happy to be able to do a little bit of editing.
Yeah, so you record to Pro Tools, then you put it onto the tape.
Right, so I record, I record all the microphones into Pro Tools, then I mix them down onto my console, and the console has, a stereo output. So channels left and right get printed to a 2-track tape machine.
It just warms it up?
Yep. Just warms it up. You can hit the tape at different degrees of intensity and it'll do different things.
So it's kind of like the ultimate plugin, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like when you use like, oh, I want an analog plugin.
Totally. And it can be a hassle from time to time, but then also different reels of tape will do different things. It's just a very human element to a sort of hybrid digital and analog recording situation.
Do you consider yourself a producer?
I really grew up as a guitar player. I started playing when I was like 9, and I was always the guy that was trying to get the band to have band practice after school, and then I was the guy that had the 4-track tape machine. At some point in high school, I figured out what it was to be a record producer, and I was like, oh, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. From there, it was just sort of like, okay, how can I do this for a living? I was in New York. I grew up in New York.
And you went to NYU.
I went to NYU. I had this community of people at NYU, and we were doing like a lot of recordings and film scores and all sorts of stuff. This guy, John Seal, and I started a company called Mason Jar Music, and we did a lot of video production. We would do these live performance videos in interesting abandoned spaces around New York with large chamber ensembles, like an 18-piece ensemble. And then we would also make records in the basement of this house that we were living in. So that was kind of how I first started producing for people other than myself or whatever band I was in. And then when I moved to Nashville, I sort of parted ways with Mason Jar and just became Dan Knobler, guy who makes records.
So what are the last few records or artists that you've worked with?
I did a record with Lake Street Dive that came out a couple months ago. I made a record recently for a singer-songwriter named Aaron Ray, who's one of my favorites. I've worked with a lot of just super awesome songwriters in town, Kelsey Walden, Caroline Spence, the Straybirds, Maya DeVitri. It's been a busy season. I feel very lucky.
New album with Marty Schwartz coming up.
Yeah, let's do it.
So what brought you to Nashville specifically? You said your wife is?
Yeah, my wife grew up kind of between New York and Nashville, and she always considered Nashville home. And at a certain point, I was working on, there was a Hank Williams biopic. My father-in-law was the music director for that. And so he brought me down here to record all of the performances, and specifically to get Tom Hiddleston.
Oh yeah, I remember when they were
to sound like Hank Williams on record. We were here for like 6 weeks working on that project, and somewhere in the middle of that, we were like, hey, we should move here. Like this is where we're supposed to be.
I love it here.
And I'm incredibly glad that we made the decision.
So you married into some music as well?
I did, yeah.
And your wife is musical?
My wife is musical, but not a musician. She grew up with a mom and dad as a songwriter and a grandpa as a, country music icon. I'm surrounded by music a good bit. My dad was also the editor of Crawdaddy magazine, which was like a competitor to Rolling Stone in the 70s.
Nice.
And so there was always music on when I was growing up, and he had an amazing record collection, and both my mom and my dad definitely heavily shaped my musical upbringing.
That's probably my favorite kind of telly. It's like the Keith Richards yellow with the black pickguard.
Classic.
Classic, right? So Let's hear about it.
It's just a normal 52 reissue that I got on Craigslist in New York. I think, if I remember correctly, I traded some pedals and then gave them some cash. Like when I was a kid, I always wanted like the fattest sounding guitar because like I knew that like you're supposed to have a big sounding tone, and I didn't know how to get it with a Tele. I remember playing one and being like, this sounds very thin. Like I don't know how to make it sound cool. And then at some point I was like, oh, right, it's the best guitar that's ever been made. You just have to figure out how to play it. I've done various things to it over the years. There's a guy named Matt Brewster at 30th Street Guitars in New York, and he makes these amazing Fender replicas called Rust guitars. And
yeah, I've heard of them.
The necks on those guitars are they just feel perfect. And so I brought him this, and I was just like, hey, do whatever you do to your necks. Like I don't know what it is. I want it to feel like one of yours.
Yeah.
So he shaved it down a little bit, so it's a little bit thinner, and then it also has the finish has been removed. It feels like it's been worn in. It just feels perfect now. And then I think I put a Lawler pickup in the neck, and I ended up swapping out not the bridge plate, but just the saddle, like a Glendale saddles, and just like little things over time, and it just feels really great now.
So is this your number one?
This is definitely, yeah, this is my number one.
It's the number one we're covering.
This feels like home to me.
You like a lot of different effects, or?
I use a lot of like harmonic tremolo, wobbly type of tremolo like this. But in the end of the day, a lot of the music that I make, I mean, there's a certain amount of room for experimentation, but I feel like for the most part that comes as an overdub, and so my pedal board when I'm tracking is like pretty straightforward. It's a drive and a delay and different types of tremolo. Being able to sort of cover a lot of sonic ground in a subtle way is really nice. So I have, a little bit of delay, and then you can kind of ramp up the feedback, and so you can get a little bit of extra sustain without having to play that much.
Do you like going out and gigging?
I do. I love playing in town. My wife and I have been together for a while, and she grew up with parents who were on the road. And so pretty early on, we sort of had this agreement of like, hey, let's figure out how you can make a living playing music without being on the road all the time. Yeah, we sort of had this rule of like, hey, I'm not going to take a gig out on the road unless it's really good people that I want to be in a van with, really good music that I really want to be playing, or money that I just can't turn down. You're lucky if you get 2 of those. You never get 3. Unless you're sort of in the upper leagues of touring, it's like you're in a van and you're sleeping, you're lucky if you get a hotel. Unless you're in a band, you're just kind of in it with whoever gets hired. And so it's kind of a little bit of a crapshoot of like, hey, do I want to spend 2 weeks in a van with these people or not?
Weird social experiment, always.
Yeah, definitely.
You're never going to get around it.
I love playing in town. I love getting the opportunity to play live, particularly with people who I've made records with, because making records is, you never really have the moment of catharsis. You never have the connection with the audience. But to be able to sort of watch a songwriter deliver a song and watch it move people
and feel
the energy in the room is amazing. And so I love, I'll oftentimes get hired to play the album release shows or duo stuff where it's just me and the artist.
Can you play through a couple sounds on it?
Sure. I'm not really a guy that's like moving around a whole bunch sonically within a song. It can certainly do like some country.
Yeah.
So it can do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it can also be very sweet, particularly in the middle setting.
You ever roll tone off or anything, or?
Sometimes. I mean, I feel like usually I'm trying to get that type of thing on the amp, and I mostly leave it pretty open.
Do you have a Strat?
I do have a Strat. I use the Strat for the Strat thing, the like second position quacky sort of thing. Like I feel like when I'm looking for the sort of searing lead that a Strat can also do, I end up just finding it on the Tele. And again, I'm just more comfortable on the shape of this guitar and the feeling of it.
Do you got a baritone?
I do. I love baritone guitars. I had a Dan Electro reissue for a long time, and they're great, but they're not particularly well-built instruments. And eventually I saw this Jerry Jones come up on Reverb.com, and it's amazing.
So not everyone understands a baritone. I think we've covered them a little bit.
I mean, it's a 6-string guitar, and most people tune it B to B, so down a fifth from a normal guitar, but tuned in the same
chords.
Yeah, same chord shape, same intervals. I tune mine A to A, so you get even a little bit further down. I think the thing it's most known for is the kind of classic like. tic-tac bass thing.
Okay.
But I really just play it as a low guitar. I mean, particularly this Jerry Jones, like because it's a better built instrument, it has 6 individual saddles that you can intonate with, and it also has 3 pickups so you can kind of be in a humbuckery zone. Like, it's just a beautiful, rich sounding.
So is that a?
So this would be a C chord in a G shape,
Right.
which is awesome. Again, like for playing duo with singer-songwriters, it's amazing. But you know, it's like they can play.
So it's not just a studio axe.
No, the 2 guitars that I'm bringing to a gig are my Tele and this. And I sometimes try like, oh please, you send me a set list, please let it not have something that I need to play baritone on. And then there's always something, at least one, where it's just gonna be cool sounding.
Just get that one. You've got lower tones now, don't you?
And then it's also awesome for just kind of like groove and bass and guitar stuff, which I don't really get the opportunity to do that much, but it's kind of what I do when I just sit around by myself.
You really get that bass sound in there.
It's so much fun.
So we got this baritone guitar. Do you find that if you've been playing like a regular guitar too much, you can jump over to the baritone for a little, like mix up that rut that you feel in sometimes?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, just to have a different thing come out of it?
Totally. I think I now probably just have 2 ruts. I have my baritone rut and my Tele rut. It's sort of like popping into another tuning. It's like, okay, you kind of know what's going on here, but it just forces you to think a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And that can be super helpful. The Dan Electro ones are great. And they can, particularly if you get them set up really nicely, they can be really reliable. But these Jerry Jones are just really well-made, beautiful instruments. And I felt like it was going from like, oh, this is a really cool toy with the Dan Electro to like, oh, this is a beautiful instrument.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Wow, the sound on that guitar.
Yeah, this is a special one.
So tell me, what do we have here?
So this is a 1964 Gibson Dove that was my mother-in-law's main touring guitar for most of my wife's childhood.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it's really sweet. And so when my wife and I got married, my wife's stepfather, Roseanne's husband, gave this guitar to my wife. So this is technically Carrie's. She asked me to ask her permission when I use it, which is not a very efficient deal that we have, but I try. Thank you, Carrie. So yeah, this is her beautiful guitar. She does not play it, but I'm sort of charged with...
Does she play it all? Like
No, and she has, I think, one of the best minds for remembering songs and lyrics that I've ever encountered, but she does not play. Yeah. But she's also my very best critic. She will be the only one to be like, yeah, actually, that sounds bad. You did a bad job.
Nice.
You should reconsider that. And she's always right.
So marriage material, yeah.
Definitely. So John Leventhal is my mother-in-law's husband, my stepfather-in-law. And I think he got this guitar in Austin, Texas, and was just, I think, really taken by its sort of chunky, rich, low end. And this was Roseanne Cash, my mother-in-law's main guitar for a long time, until she was given a signature series Martin, which she now plays.
Roseanne Cash is your mother-in-law?
Roseanne Cash is my mother-in-law. Guitars can have this really amazing family lineage that I think is incredibly important. And you know, I definitely have already thought about passing this guitar on to my son, whether he plays it or not. I think it's just a really cool thing to sort of have these family mementos. Artists are really gravitate to this guitar because it has a really thin neck, it's really easy to play, and it just it's not a particularly great like lead flat top guitar, but it just as a strumming thing, it sounds so full and rich, and it's easy to play, and it records really beautifully.
Wow.
Very, very meaningful guitar in our family.
It stays here in the studio?
It stays here in the studio. It'll sometimes gravitate to the house and be my sort of sitting around on the couch guitar. Yeah. But it kind of is like the main guitar that I reach for in the studio. So more often than not, it finds its way back here.
And you sometimes have artists in here, and will you just hand it to them like, hey, play this one?
Yeah, definitely.
And then they go, oh my God,
this
is it. We should just sit and listen to it a little bit. Or I'll sit and listen to it.
Sure. This guitar is a particularly poultry-y guitar.
Oh, let's hear about the poultry sounding guitar.
I got it.
What do we got?
It's a Kay Vanguard, maybe. I got it thinking that it was kind of going to be like in the gold foil zone of like sweet, rich sounding. It was a Craigslist thing, and when I went, I don't know if this was a mistake or this is how the guitar is supposed to be, but the two pickups are wired out of phase. On the neck, you get sort of a richer, sweeter sound that's like kind of that woody gold foil thing. But then here, it's super hollow and quacky sounding. But so yeah, a guy was selling like a couple different guitars and amps, and I just went over to see what it was all about and kind of fell in love. And in addition to this quacky, like, in addition to that,
that also is a cool sound.
It's a really cool sound, and it kind of sounds like it has like an envelope filter on it, but it doesn't. You can kind of pretend to be a clavinet and like. If you hit it really hard, it's just a great like rock and roll rhythm guitar of like. It can kind of take a beating.
I was gonna say it feels like it now wants to be in G tuning, the Keith Richards tuning.
Yeah, totally.
It definitely would have a good sound.
It is Nashville, and a lot of the music that I make is it's very songwriter based. You're trying to present the song. You're not trying to overshadow it in any way. And so I feel like a lot of times what I'm trying to do is just like shift my intention on the instrument or the artist's intention on the instrument just a little bit out of your comfort zone. I think this is a really good way of doing that because it's a trashy instrument. It doesn't sound that great. You can hit it really hard and it kind of reacts in this weird way. So if we're playing a song and it just feels like a little tame, sometimes I'll grab this thing. Again, it like sort of kicks you into this other zone.
I gotta say it's one of the coolest bursts.
I'm such a sucker for all the catalog guitars and amps, the Ks and the harmonies and obviously they're cheaply made, but they were made with good parts. Whereas now cheaply made instruments are made cheaply with cheap parts.
Yeah.
It's like these pickups are really cool, and on amps it's like they always have they have great tubes, they have great capacitors, they're just kind of made in like the crappiest piece of wood that you can get.
Right.
So inevitably what happens is like I'll buy something on Craigslist, I'll take it to Joe Glazer, he rebuilt the bridge here, and it just like stays in tune a lot better. And he's always like, why do you bring me your crappiest instruments? I'm like, well, the good ones don't need work.
All right, so the K, I like it. I also like the variety we've had. One thing that stayed the same is that everything you were playing was going through this amp. I don't know anything about it. So
yeah, I love this amp dearly. It's a Maestro Deluxe Reverb Echo. I think there were only about 400 of them made. It's like a Tweed Deluxe with reverb and tremolo. It's got some magic to it. It's got two different channels that sound really different, so I jump them. On amps that have two inputs, you can use the second one as an output, and you can send it to another amp, or you can send it to the other channel on the same amp. So for instance, like channel 1 is a little bit rounder sounding. Channel 2 is a little bit brighter and more lead forward. And you can kind of blend them together, so like there's a tone knob on this thing, but I kind of use the two different channels as a tone, so like a rounder thing, and then kind of bring in a little bit of the edge. which is great. It also has a feature that a couple of these types of older amps have, but not all of them, where you can turn the volume down but the reverb up. So you just get the reverberated signal.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's got this really weird, quirky, long reverb. I just find this amp to be kind of the perfect, it's kind of the perfect amp.
Can we hear some more of that haunting reverb-only setting? I'm sorry about your dog and that your truck broke down. I saw that tear in your ear. I'm really sorry about that, man. Dan, thanks so much, man, for the time. And
total pleasure.
Just getting in your head a little bit. I think I certainly know you better now than a few hours ago, right?
Yeah,
so real quick, though, this is Goosehead Palace.
It is. Tennessee.
You guys should check out Goosehead Palace. And also, you have a website.
I have a website. DanKnobler.com.
Keep doing what you're doing, man.
Well, thank you.
Keep inspiring. I'm inspired now.
Well, thanks.
Let's do a little, you want to have a little plucky pluck?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.